Perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. A lot coming up in the next hour, but first, let's go to the news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Sierra Leone has accused Guinea of capturing several members of its security forces in the latest flare-up of a long-running row over border territory. Guinea later said that several dozen Sierra Leonean armed soldiers had entered its territory without authorization on Sunday, prompting armed forces to apprehend 16 of them and seize equipment. The territorial dispute between the two West African countries dates back to Sierra Leone's 1991 to 2002 civil war, when Guinea deployed troops to help fight rebels. A team has been sent to the area to investigate the incident. The Madlang Commission of Inquiry in South Africa has been postponed to tomorrow after a crime intelligence officer who handles informants fell ill. His legal counsel brought a postponement application. The commission is probing allegations of criminality, corruption and political interference in the police and criminal justice system of the country. The Madlang Commission has taken issue with the medical certificate that the witness produced with Commissioner Sesi Baloyi, questioning that it said nothing about his condition.
It is unacceptable that we've got A1 this morning. It says nothing about the condition of the patient and whether this patient has been seen by this person in the way that I've read, that according to my knowledge / I have been informed. It doesn't tell us that whoever signed this saw this patient and that this is their opinion that he cannot come and appear before us.
The World Health Organization has reiterated that Africa has the ability to solve its own issues. The World Health Body revealed on the sidelines of a joint meeting of SADC Ministers of Health in Johannesburg, South Africa, that 114 outbreaks occurred on the continent last year, but they were effectively managed. One example is the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was controlled in a record time of 60 days. Deputy Executive Secretary for Regional Integration at SADC, Angel Makombo-Ntumba, says there are other issues that are compounding the health burdens of the region.
But we also have, in our region, we have noticed that each of the countries impose medication individually. So why not pull our effort together and create a mechanism to have a pooled procurement services where we can, import our medication, and so that will decrease the prices.
The Commission for Gender Equality in South Africa today convened a webinar aimed at interrogating how gender inequality is sustained at the intersection of religion and health. The Commission spokesperson Jabu Baloyi says the session looked into how religion and health systemic realities shape lives and embodied experiences. Faith leaders, policymakers, civil society movements, and scholars were among those who took part in the webinar. At least 25 people have died in southeast Brazil after heavy rain and flooding caused numerous landslides. Most victims are in the city of Rio de Fora, where another 45 people are missing and hundreds more have been made homeless. A state emergency has been declared, with emergency services responding to building collapses and landslides. That is all for now. For any stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Chanduko Ligege.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Coach has named his 49-man squad for the alignment camp, and Justin Thomas is expected to return to action after a long layoff. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
This is Africa Update, your pulse to the continent. Stories shaping nations and voices driving change. Stay informed, stay connected, right here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
It is 12:04 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa from an African perspective. We are on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app and Channel Africa app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684 #Africa Update. Coming up on Africa Update today, Malawi's president has directed that a fresh inquiry be conducted into the plane crash that claimed the life of the former Vice President Saulos Klaus Chilema and 8 others. And 2 Ugandan women have been arrested for kissing in public. Our big milestone. South Africa SABC Plus has officially reached 2 million registered users. And there's even more waiting for you. Stream great content from Super Sports Schools, Sportscast, Bricks TV Africa, Mpuma Kapa TV, and 1KZN TV, all on SABC Plus. So if you haven't yet, download SABC Plus today and join the millions. One platform, more to watch and to listen to. SABC Plus, download, register and stream now.
Africa is changing and the world is paying attention. This March, Channel Africa invites you to be part of a new conversation. Africa Matters, a platform where experts, policymakers, and thought leaders come together to unpack the big issues of our time: technology, politics, economics, climate change, and the future of our people. This is where ideas meet action, where change becomes opportunity, where Africa's voice takes its rightful place on the global stage. In March 2026, Channel Africa hosts Africa Climate Change Recovery Summit. Join the dialogue. Be part of the movement. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Today on #Africa Update asks, 2 Ugandan women have been arrested for kissing in public. Now, we want to know, do you feel that Uganda's anti-gay laws are too harsh, or do you agree with the law? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684 #Africa Update asks.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Malawi's President Peter Mutharika has directed that a fresh inquiry be conducted into the plane crash that claimed the life of the former Vice President Saulos Klaus Chilema and 8 others. The directive comes after the Minister of Justice, Charles Mango, who was tasked by President Mutharika to review reports produced during the previous administration, told Parliament on Tuesday that he identified significant gaps in the investigations and recommended a new inquiry. George Mango reports from Blantyre.
Malawi's Minister of Justice, Charles Mhango, who was tasked by President Peter Mutharika to review reports produced during the previous administration, told Parliament on Tuesday that he identified significant gaps in the investigations and recommended a new inquiry. Mhango also criticized the Commission of Inquiry instituted by former President Lazarus Chakwera, arguing that the resignation of 2 commissioners raised concerns about the integrity of the process. The minister further noted that some witnesses who were summoned declined to testify and that the commission operated in what he described as an unfavorable environment.
President, that time on 25th October of 2024, gave the Commission of Inquiry only 30 days. So there was no time. It worked under panic. And when it came to evidence, the report itself says a lot of people were reluctant to testify. For whatever reasons, no reasons are being given. Some people are running away from testifying, and in my view, even the members of the commission of themselves, I have identified the two who resigned in the middle of the investigations. They resigned.
According to Muhango, the final report by the German experts relied heavily on findings from the earlier commission regarding the cause of the plane crash. In light of these gaps, Muhango told Parliament that President Mutharika has since ordered that the matter be reopened with a parliamentary committee set to conduct the inquiry. Jean Kasunda is one such campaigner.
The fresh inquiry, if done without malice, prejudice, and any form of machination, will also help clear some people and institutions that are perceived to have done something wrong owing to the way the tragedy was managed. However, for the fresh inquiry's report to be easily and genuinely accepted by all concerned parties, I would suggest that the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee be as neutral and as representative of all parties, including the independence bloc, as possible. And just like some constitutional parliamentary committees demand the chairperson to come from the opposition, I suggest the Ad Hoc Committee follow this prescription. Most importantly, the fresh inquiries hearings should be open to the public. There must be total transparency throughout the process. It is only an inquiry that is open to the public and is seen to be transparent in all its dealings that the report thereof will be accepted by everyone in the country. And this would truly put this matter to the rest.
Lawmaker Felix Njawara, who is also spokesperson for the United Transformation Movement, UTM, a party that was formed by the former Vice President, the late Saulo Silima, said the decision vindicates the party's long-standing position on the matter.
And today we've been vindicated because the minister highlighted that in the inquiry reports there are some gaps. That's exactly what we have been saying. Now, we are glad that there will be another inquiry, giving the powers to Parliament to conduct that inquiry. For us, that is commendable.
Some human rights campaigners have described the issue as serious, arguing that independent experts, rather than a parliamentary committee, should handle it. Last month, the Center for Democracy and Economic Development, CEDED, called on President Mutharika to launch a new investigation into the plane crash. The group noted that the initial government-led investigation did not adequately address the cause of the crash, leaving many Malawians with questions unanswered. George Mhango, Channel Africa News, Blantyre.
And for more on the story, we are now joined on the line by political analyst Undule Mwakasangula. Undule, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you once again for calling me to contribute to this program.
Now, Undule, what are they politically and institutional factors that may have influenced President Peter Mutharika's decision to order a fresh inquiry into the crash?
But let me start by saying that the death of the former president and 8 others was a painful national tragedy. Malawians still feel that there are some questions which were not fully answered in the first commission of inquiry. And there are issues, especially on issues of accountability and on political and institutional factors. You know, public trust is very important. If people feel that the first report left gaps, the president may believe that a fresh inquiry could restore confidence and provide closure. So the decision by the president may be influenced by public pressure, but also the need to rebuild trust in the state institutions.
Now, to what extent might this fresh inquiry be responding to bipartisan pressure from opposition parties and civil society? And you know, you touched on something that's very key: accountability. If there are indications that there was more to this plane crash than was reported on, what is likely going to happen to whoever was in charge?
But let me say that yes, there have been pressure from some civil society, the Chilima UTM party, and other political parties asking for more clarity on this tragedy. Know that this is not a political issue; it's a national concern. Because when such tragedies happen, citizens naturally demand for answers. So while the pressure may have played a role, I go back to the bigger issue is all about public accountability. But the important question is who is demanding it and whether there are real gaps that still need to be addressed in this new inquiry. Yes, you mentioned about some who might have been involved. Well, there are questions this. We hear that the plane was outdated, there are not procedures followed, but how did they allow the second best, most important person in this country to jump into a plane which was outdated, but also did not follow procedure? So someone did not do his work properly there. So those are the issues which I think need to come out. Who is responsible? That's where the issue of accountability comes in now.
Is there a risk that this fresh inquiry could be seen as politically motivated rather than technically grounded? And just looking at the fact that, this elections are coming up, and this is another way, as you say, when we started this conversation, you mentioned the fact that it was a painful national tragedy and accountability has to come forward. So, is it a genuine a situation, or is there more to be read into this?
No, I think the call for the new inquiry is genuine, and it has both benefits and risks. On the positive side, the president may be seen as a listening president and taking leadership, and it may restore confidence and trust in him and show that he is transparent, committed to transparency. But on the risky side, if the process is not clear and not professional, it may increase political bickerings. Some may think that it's politically timed. And also, if recommendations are not clear, are not implemented, Malawians will be disappointed, concluding that all politicians are the same. But I think what is very important is to see what is the purpose or the new scope of this new inquiry. Some may think that it's meant to attack the first commission or target individuals. That will damage credibility. So to avoid this, the inquiry must be independent, professional, and focused on facts, actually. It must clearly explain the new issues it wants to address, because credibility will depend on transparency and the technical competency of the new commission.
And let's speak about Chilema's family and how this will also impact them as the late vice president's family and people who wanted more information as to what unfolded.
Yeah, the family, I think, are welcoming this. We saw some messages yesterday. Mede Chilima thanking the president and the first lady for instituting this new commission. Yes, the family would mainly want to find out the truth and closure. And this won't be possible if the process is respectful, but also transparent. Definitely they will welcome if it is honest and independent. But however, if it looks the same, then there will be so many other questions whether the new commission came in because of politics, and that I think might continue to frustrate the family actually. But I think the public still wants clear answers. And honest communication will be very important, in this process. That I think there's honesty, there's the openness, and there's independence in this new commission. Because if we are not clear in terms of the scope, as I indicated, then it might be business as usual. So it's important that if there are new issues, let those issues come out. But also, I was already indicated in the past that I think we should not completely trash the first commission report. There are issues which might be carried on in terms of moving forward as a nation. Because the issue is not about the tragedy. The issue is more about preventing the tragedy, that it should not happen again in the future. There are issues of reforms, the issues of making sure that we follow the right procedures so that we should avoid the future tragedies.
And speaking of avoiding future tragedies, how might the regional, I beg your pardon, just the regional or global perceptions of Malawi's governance be affected by the outcomes of this renewed investigation, as well as also this inquiry brings into the spotlight, aviation safety and just national policy reforms in Malawi concerning aviation and just conversations to be had?
Let me say the international community always watches how countries handle crises like this one. And if Malawi we conduct ourselves professionally and transparent in terms of the new inquiry, that would definitely strengthen confidence in our governance system. But if it appears political, driven by maybe poorly handled, it may weaken trust in the region, but also globally. But I think in the end, this should be more about strengthening institutions, restoring public trust, but also, as I indicated, that ensuring that such tragedy never happens again. So the issue of radical reforms are very, very important, very, very clear, and very important for the nation to push. It's not about targeting individuals, but the main goal should not be about targeting individuals, but prevention, so that this should not happen again in future.
Undule, thank you for your time. We'll leave it there for today.
Thank you very much and welcome.
That's political analyst Undule Mwakasungula joining us on the line.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine, weekdays 6 till 9.
In Zimbabwe, traditional leaders are at the forefront of restoring the Miombo woodlands, crucial for rural livelihoods and biodiversity. FAO of the Food and Agricultural Organization has trained chiefs, headmen, and village heads in sustainable forest management, community accountability, and protection from sexual exploitation and abuse.
Traditional leaders are really central because they are the custodians of land and natural resources in rural communities. So in districts like Muzi and Rushinga in Zimbabwe, they really influence how forests are used and protected. So by empowering them, we strengthen local ownership, we improve compliance with sustainable practices, and ensure that Miombo restoration efforts are really community-driven and long-lasting, which is important.
Renee Chudek, FAO Senior Forestry Officer for Southern Africa.
Mornings made better with Peter and Asanda on Rise and Shine. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 22 after 12 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today on hashtag Africa Update, ask that 2 Ugandan women have been arrested for kissing in public. And we want to know if you feel that Uganda's anti-gay laws are too harsh, or do you agree with the law? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +267 83 288 6684. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
The sound of Africa is evolving. Experience our new mobile app. Free to download, free to connect. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
The United Nations Security Council convened Tuesday as Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine entered its 5th year, with member states renewing urgent calls for an immediate, full and unconditional ceasefire. Western delegations press for sustained diplomatic and economic pressure on Russia, citing expanded sanctions and continued military and humanitarian assistance for Kiev. Addressing the chamber, Ukraine's Deputy Foreign Minister Mariana Betsa accused Moscow of waging an imperial neo-colonial war. And Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe has more.
In commemorating 4 years after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine on Tuesday, the UN Security Council marked the day with high-level debate and renewed calls to end the war, including in the General Assembly, which passed a resolution reaffirming its strong commitment to the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine. The debate underscored mounting humanitarian costs, intensifying diplomacy, and the gap between calls for peace and realities on the battlefield, as civilians' infrastructure and energy system remain under attack. While presenting a peace resolution titled Support for Lasting Peace in Ukraine, Ukraine's Deputy Foreign Minister Mariana Betsa delivered a forceful condemnation of Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine.
Russia's war of aggression has shattered peace in Europe and around the globe and struck at the very core of the UN Charter and the fundamental principles of international law, sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-use of force. Russia's war of aggression is imperial and neo-colonial in its nature. What Russia wants to do, what Kremlin wants to do, is to divide the world into spheres of influence and to make Ukraine as a satellite. Russia will not succeed. Russia miscalculated gravely in 2014 when it started its aggression against Ukraine, thinking that Ukraine would collapse. Russia miscalculated gravely in 2022 when it started its full-scale invasion, thinking that Ukraine would collapse. And Russia miscalculates gravely now, in February 2026, thinking that it is betting on time and Ukraine would collapse. Ukraine resists and defends itself, and we're not alone. I'm grateful to each and every member state present in this hall for your outstanding support.
Betsa said the war does not serve Ukraine's interests, stressing that the country remains committed to pursuing peace.
Madam President, Ukraine did not choose this war. Ukraine chooses peace. Ukraine chooses life. Ukraine chooses independence and freedom. If Ukraine were to stop fighting, we would lose our state, our people, and our freedom. Ukraine seeks peace. We want peace more than anyone, but not peace at any cost, not peace at any price, not peace under the disguise of capitulation or surrender. It will not happen. Ukraine will not surrender. We will never accept the occupation of our territories or our people. We will never accept awarding aggressor for its aggression, and we will never accept impunity for crimes committed against Ukrainians for all these 12 years.
Responding to the accusations, Russia's deputy ambassador to the UN, Anna Estigeva, rejected Ukraine's peace proposal, arguing that an immediate ceasefire would merely allow Ukraine to regroup and rearm rather than address what Russia called the root causes of the conflict.
Today, you have been presented with yet another text that essentially continues the same line. The draft resolution is titled Support for Lasting Peace in Ukraine, but its content focuses primarily on the demand for an immediate and complete cessation of hostilities. A ceasefire in itself can be an important element of a settlement, but it is not an end in itself. History knows many examples when a hasty truce that did not address the root causes of the conflict turned into just a pause before a new round of violence. It is clear that Kiev, facing serious difficulties on the front line, as well as dwindling support from its Western sponsors, is primarily interested in a pause so that it can regroup and rearm.
She said trilateral talks are underway in Abu Dhabi and Geneva, urging restraint and respect for diplomacy while crediting the efforts of Donald Trump's administration to broker a compromise.
Trilateral negotiations are presently underway between Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. Talks are being held in Abu Dhabi and Geneva. The delegations are working under challenging conditions, fully aware of their historical responsibility for the outcome. This is a moment that calls for quiet, restraint, and respect for the negotiation process. Instead, we are witnessing blatant disregard for the diplomatic efforts of those countries who are investing political capital into the settlement, primarily the United States, as well as the personal efforts of President Donald Trump's administration aimed at finding a compromise. If the true goal is really peace, then actions must corroborate words rather than contradict them.
Speaking on behalf of South Africa, Andries Oosthuizen said the crisis is deeply regrettable and might have been averted through diplomatic channels.
It is regrettable that we are meeting on the 4th anniversary of a war that could have been resolved diplomatically rather than through a protracted conflict. This conflict has led to wanton destruction and the death of many in Ukraine and the Russian Federation and affected the security of the wider European region. The human and negative economic impact and tension arising from the conflict has affected all of us, including African countries.
He reaffirmed South Africa's support for protecting children on all sides of the war and called for a UN-centered negotiated settlement grounded in international law.
South Africa also reiterates its continued support for the protection of children on all sides and their inviolable right to grow up in peace in a social context that respects their identity and celebrates their humanity. President, now more than ever, at this inflection point in the stability of the global order, there is a need for a peaceful and negotiated resolution of this and other persistent conflicts, with the UN at the center, in line with a rules-based order with due respect for international law.
The resolution was adopted by 107 votes in favor, 12 against, and 51 abstentions. Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +2783 288 6684 #Africa Update. It is 12:30 and our news headlines up next.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Zimbabwe has defended its decision to terminate negotiations on a proposed $350 million health funding agreement with the U.S. Sierra Leone has accused Guinea of capturing several members of its security forces in the latest flare-up of a long-running row over border territory. And the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in South Africa has been postponed to tomorrow after a crime intelligence officer who handles informants fell ill. His legal counsel brought a postponement application. I'll be back with a full bulletin at 1 o'clock Central African time.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We begin with rugby news. Springbok coach Christmas has named a 49-man squad featuring 11 uncapped players for the team's first in-person alignment camp of the year in Cape Town. A notable return is that of Frans Malherbe, the tight head prop who has been out of action since the 2023 Rugby World Cup final due to back and neck injuries. The group includes 14 Rugby World Cup winners and 5 under-20 players. Next month's camp will include a series of boardroom and gymnasium sessions. The international season kicks off on the 20th of June against the Barbarians in Gqeberha, and the Nations Championship follows in July against England in Johannesburg, Scotland in Pretoria, and Wales in Durban before the start of the 4-match greatest rivalry series against the All Blacks in August. And football news. World Football's governing body, FIFA, is focused on developing football talent at the provincial level in South Africa, targeting around 250,000 players. This was revealed to SABC Sport in an exclusive interview with FIFA high performance specialist Faisal Shibza during his latest visit to the country last week.
The population of this country, I think we're 64 million.
Yes, 65 million.
So there you go. And we did our calculation there. There are about close to 250,000 talented boys, okay, in this country. So my challenge to the TD now is, at any given time, you need to know where these 250,000 boys are. Same thing with the girls. The girls side, I think it's about 100,000. We need a system that every year, if we're looking for kids between the ages of 11 and 14, we need to know where these 250,000 boys and 100,000 girls are playing.
Shibza, who works under former Arsenal head coach Arsene Wenger, who is now FIFA's chief of global football development, says this method makes it easier to scout elite talent in the country.
And then it makes it easier now when it comes to scouting. Okay, so if we're looking for U15 players, and we know we need to see at least 250,000 boys, how many of them have we actually observed and examined or invited? Or how many of them are actually in the best of environments? We need to know this. If you're setting up a proper system and process to produce the best talents, this is where we need to be.
On to tennis news. Fifth seed Andrei Rublev cruised into the next round of the Dubai Tennis Championships with a straight sets win over France's Valentin Roya yesterday. Rublev sealed a 6-3, 6-4 victory to set up a clash with Hugo Humbert, who knocked out fourth seed Stefanos Tsitsipas in 3 sets. Meanwhile, former Dubai champion Ugo Humbert stunned defending champion Stefanos Tsitsipas to advance into the second round of the Dubai Open Championship. Humbert sealed a straight sets victory 6-4 and 7-5 to knock out the fourth seed and underline his credentials with a commanding performance. Let's end with golf news. Justin Thomas is set to return to competition this week after 3 months out recovering from back injury surgery. A 32-year-old who last played at the Ryder Cup in September underwent a procedure in November to address a disc issue that had caused persistent hip pain. After featuring in Atlanta Drive TGL match on Monday, Thomas quickly turned his attention to the PGA's Tour Arnold Palmer Invitational. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Este é o Caleidoscópio de Canal África, com Remo Samo e João Yabalá.
Moçambique prepara-se para a chegada do ciclone tropical Gezane, prevista para esta sexta-feira, com impacto esperado nas províncias de Sofala, Inhambane e Gaza. O fenómeno, que já causou mais de 30 mortes de destruição significativa em Madagascar, poderá atingir o litoral moçambicano, com ventos de 140 km por hora e chuvas intensas, afetando cerca de 1,1 milhão de pessoas. A aproximação do ciclone surge numa altura em que o país ainda recupera das cheias de janeiro, que provocaram dezenas de mortos e afetaram mais de 700 mil pessoas. Para fazer o ponto de situação, ouvimos Rita Almeida, diretora de Planificação e Cooperação do Instituto Nacional de Gestão e Redução de Riscos de Desastres.
As famílias devem reforçar o teto das casas, as portas e as janelas. Devem evitar fazer-se tanto à rua, devem prestar atenção sobre as orientações em relação a centros de acomodação temporário, devem preparar um kit mínimo básico com fósforos, produtos alimentares, medicamentos.
De segunda a sexta-feira, das 20 às 21 horas locais, este é o Caleidoscópio do Canal África.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, I am Nosipo Zuma. In your business news, the SAWA MP for the Democratic Alliance in South Africa, Dr. Mark Berg, says the party expects this year's budget cycle to be a lot more boring than last year. In an unprecedented occurrence, the budget was only accepted on the third tabling last year, following unhappiness among government of national unity partners. Finance Minister Noko Dongwana is expected to deliver his speech at 2 p.m. Central African time in Cape Town. Berg on his party's expectations.
The DA expects this budget cycle to be a bit more boring and less bracket creepy. The fact is, South Africans are already deeply overtaxed, so we'd like to see brackets and rebates brought in line with inflation. Debt must now have peaked and start coming down, which would be the first time since 2008. We can't have any more bailouts of corrupt state-owned enterprises, and debt guarantees also need to be brought under control.
Meanwhile, activists opposed to the budget cuts in South Africa have gathered at Hanover Street in the Cape Town CBD ahead of a march to Parliament. Groups include the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Persons and a social movement Cry of the Excluded. Spokesperson for the organizers.
Both communities and the workers in COSATU and SAFTU and other federations have been feeling the effect of austerity and budget cuts for the last 30 years. And this budget cuts and no investment really in human development and prioritizing private sector has led to collapse of our communities, where public transport is collapsing, public education is collapsing.
Zimbabwe has suspended exports of all raw minerals and lithium concentrates with immediate effect. The Mines Ministry says the ban on the exports will remain in place until further notice and apply to all minerals currently in transit. In a statement, the ministry said government expects cooperation of the mining industry on this measure, which has been taken in the national interest. It added that the government remains committed to in-country value addition and beneficiation, compliance and accountability in the exploitation of Zimbabwe's mineral resources. Senegal's Finance Minister Cheikh Diba says fundamental differences remain between Senegal and the International Monetary Fund and talks for a new lending program. The West African nation is seeking a new lending program with the fund to help tackle a debt burden that has topped 130% of gross domestic product due to previously unreported borrowing by the former administration. Diba says all misreporting issues with the fund have been resolved, including an agreement on an audit and correction of statistics. However, Senegal considers the fund's assumptions about its economic situation as too pessimistic, and the government remains opposed to restructuring debts. An artificial intelligence company that's committed to developing AI safely has been given until Friday by the U.S. Defense Department to agree to unrestricted military use of its technology. The Pentagon is threatening otherwise to force Anthropic to comply. The BBC's David Willis has more.
Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei believes the more capable and autonomous AI becomes, the greater the potential for its misuse. He's repeatedly called for its regulation, and the company's focus has been on developing systems that won't cause harm. Anthropic was awarded a $200 million national security contract last July, but tensions have arisen over its refusal to lift restrictions, preventing its technology from being used to carry out domestic surveillance or to target weapons on the battlefield.
Your financial indicators: one US dollar in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 346, and Botswana is 13.07. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 12, and in Zambia it's 18 kwacha 84. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 16. Russia is 76 rubles 33. India it's 90 rupees 92. China it's 6 yuan 89, and in South Africa $1 is trading at 15 rand 98. $1 is trading at 74 pence to the British pound and 84 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $5,187 and platinum at $2,292 per ounce, while the price of Brent crude oil is at $70.99 a barrel. Now, for any stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Africa, voici Abedi.
Oui, c'est moi.
Abedi est un passionné de musique dans l'âme. Il a un goût pour toutes sortes de musique et passe ses journées à écouter Channel Africa.
J'aime beaucoup la musique africaine.
Ok. Devinez quoi? Channel Africa veut aider Abedi et les mélomanes du monde entier à découvrir encore plus de musique incroyable. C'est pourquoi Channel Africa appelle les artistes africains à soumettre leur musique. Chers artistes, n'oubliez pas de nous fournir toutes vos informations pertinentes à l'email adresse musique@channelafrica.co.za. Les soumissions sont votre chance d'être entendues, mais elles ne garantissent pas une playlist. Toutes les soumissions seront soigneusement examinées pour voir si elles répondent aux exigences de notre station. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:43 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. A new University of the Free State study has found hormone-disrupting chemicals in every sanitary pad and panty liner tested from brands sold in South Africa, even those labelled organic or chemical-free. The research detected phthalates, parabens and bisphenols in all samples, with at least 2 such substances in every product. Now, the University of the Free State scientists warned that millions of women face regular exposure and are calling for clearer labelling, tougher safety regulations and urgent further research. And for more on this, we are joined on the line by Team Free Sanitary Pads founder, Nokuzola Ndwandwe. Nokuzola, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
So, your reaction when you saw this research study, what went through your mind?
It was a sigh of relief because we've had this information for a very long time by international researchers. I've been educating young girls and women on the content contained in the menstrual products and the chemicals and the toxic dioxins that are found in menstrual products since way back from 2023. However, it's the first time we've had the actual research being conducted locally in our country, and also with the specified brands being listed and actually publicized to inform the public of what we've been actually preaching and educating young girls and women, especially in rural communities and in schools.
Now, when you say specified brands, the research is basically just mentioning brands sold in South Africa. How does this new research now shape Team Free Sanitary Pads messaging about product safety and transparency?
It strengthens our message. It strengthens our presentation that we made in Parliament last year in February 2025 to the Portfolio Health Committee, and also I think in the previous years, because we've been doing presentations in Parliament in terms of bringing about awareness when it comes to menstrual health and hygiene management, and the fact that we need menstrual health to be recognized as a health issue rather than just the products and how they've been treated in the past as just luxury goods. So now this strengthens our call for regulation for menstrual health rights bill and law. The fact that we were not just presenting in Parliament for the sake of presenting lived experiences and some menstrual health related illnesses, specifically with myself having experienced endometriosis, that it's actually a reality that, I didn't mention that it's concerning that how as a young woman you grow up and you don't have any form of reproductive health concerns, you are young and healthy until you start menarche, and then after a few months or so, you start experiencing these severe period pains or irregular menstrual cycles. And then I've always positioned it in Parliament to say that perhaps we should do more investigations around the menstrual products to say that the menstrual products could have an impact in terms of the menstrual health-related illnesses such as endometriosis, cervical cancer, and PCOS, as well as fibroids. The chemicals contained, because the use of synthetic fibers, bleach, cotton, not exactly real cotton, but rather recycled plastic material, which is not breathable, is very concerning because, the reproductive health system is actually a breathing system. It absorbs everything that is actually used around the reproductive area.
And given that many of these chemicals migrate from, as you've touched on, plastics and adhesives, during manufacturing, what steps will your organization or should the government take to source or produce pads that eliminate or minimize such contamination? And with the studies and research that has been done and with everything that has been found currently now in South Africa, what is the reaction of some of these companies that are found to be wanting?
Some of the companies are tone deaf, of which is expected. from the past as well. Previously, we've campaigned against toxic positivity around menstrual health, and that organizations need to be more realistic about how they present menstrual health without perpetuating the stigma. So, and some organizations usually are defensive and are tone deaf until we put pressure and actually make them recognize that what they are doing is actually detrimental to the end user, to the consumer, to women's health as an overall. And so one of the organizations released a statement saying that the menstrual products are SABS approved, which is concerning, and that they are transparent in the packaging, of which it is false, because you want packaging that actually displays and illustrates the content as well as the material that's contained in the menstrual product, of which is something that most menstrual brands have not yet achieved and are yet to achieve if you actually get a regulation and a legislation that actually provides guidelines as to what is required, because SABS mostly tests the external factors such as the absorbency or the packaging instead of the chemicals that are actually contained in the menstrual product, and for the fact that they don't test for the health implications of what's contained in the menstrual product. So we need organizations like the SAPRA, the health regulatory body, to actually step in with medical experts to actually test the products that are distributed in markets, and actually multinationals and local brands need to recall the products that are actually of a detrimental nature rather than issuing statements that are false and that are misleading and that actually further cause damage when it comes to women's health.
Now, one of the researchers, Professor Fisser, recommends looking for OCO Tech Standard 100 certification or switching to reusable pads. How feasible is it for South Africa to adopt these standards? And what challenges do you anticipate in scaling up reusable options? I mean, already I can just see women saying reusable. Is that even a possibility?
If we must be frank and we must be realistic and we must be aware of the fact that majority of South Africans do not have access to safe sanitation and clean water, then the reusables, even though they're actually very good for women's health, they are often not as accessible. And at times they are almost an expensive alternative because of the nature of the maintenance that comes with reusable menstrual products. They require water, they require access to detergents, they require access to, drying the product at high temperatures, or rather drying them through the sun. But not a lot of women and young girls have access to this type of lifestyle. And so I think as much as we'd like to promote it, we also have to be careful as to the type of reusable pads that we are promoting, that the reusable pads actually have antibacterial contents in them, that they have a high absorbency, and that they actually can be used by that young girl or that working woman, because also the hours that it takes to actually change the menstrual products, the hygiene and the care that comes with it. But however, during this period, I think it's also, it could be a feasible option if women are assisted and young girls are assisted, particularly women and young girls residing in remote communities and rural communities. Perhaps the South African government needs to do more than just product distribution, but also deal with the matter around safe sanitation and access to clean water and safe bathrooms for young girls.
Nokuzola, very quickly, just in wrapping up, we have run out of time, but legally, is there a case here? Are we likely to see some cases mushrooming against the brands and companies?
Taking the brand support is a last resort, but it is brewing. Women and young girls are actually, they're not in a good space right now, in the sense that, health is expensive. But the fact that you have misleading and organizations that are not transparent in the type of menstrual products that they distribute in the economy makes matters even more worse. It's almost like they're creating a vicious cycle around period poverty. And so, yes, there is some form of an uprising brewing. We've been marching since way back, but now I think we'll do more than just march and actually take legal action, whereby I've had legal minds come forward and send me messages and emails saying that they'd like to discuss a way forward as to how we can achieve regulation in terms of protecting women's rights. And I mean, we've been calling for the Menstrual Health Rights Bill. We've been having debates in Parliament, and I think this is an opportunity to actually bring about the protection of women's rights.
Nogzola, thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update. That was Team Free Sanitary Pads founder Nogzola Ndwandwe joining us on the line.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, Tebogo Kuleni is here of the Upside team. How are you today? Happy Hump Day. It is Wednesday, right?
Happy Hump Day. It is Hump Day.
Wednesday. It is Hump Day.
I'm fantastic.
Yeah, so
Thank
what's
you so
coming
much.
up today?
It's a Travel Wednesday this afternoon on the Upside, and we'll be talking about the Ajabu Cocktail and Spirits Festival, which will be returning to Johannesburg and Cape Town in March. They'll be taking over bars, there will be master classes and Pan-African talent development. And then we have a chat with the South African Chefs Association, who are bringing the African Culinary Cup back to South Africa in June 2026 at the Cape Town ICC. And the president, Chef Kupile, has said that the focus this year will be on education, global partnerships, and professional recognition. And in our final conversation, we head over to KZN. They are currently in Sandton for the Meetings Africa 2026, and we'll be talking about the plans that they have. They have met their target. Not necessarily met their target. They generated over 21.8 billion rand in tourism in 2025, and now they're planning ahead for the year 2028. So we'll be finding out more about the plans, the infrastructure developments, and what lies in store for the KZN Tourism Department. That's all coming up on the Upside.
That's the Upside coming up at the top of the hour with Tebogo Kuleni and Matseko Musito. Well, today, we're doing things differently today. We're talking about a number of issues that we've covered. We were hoping to speak to the political analyst of Uganda and just unpack exactly what's happened there in terms of the Anti-Homosexuality Act that has been imposing penalties of up to life imprisonment for consensual same-sex relations. And thus our questions for today being that the two women who were found kissing were arrested in Uganda, and we wanted to know from you what you feel. Do you feel that Uganda's anti-gay laws are too harsh, or do you agree with the laws? Continue with us on all our social media platforms. Share your thoughts on your end views on all our social media platforms. That's at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, and at Channel Africa on Facebook. You can also send us your comments and voice notes on +27 83 288 6684 as hashtag Africa Update Ask. Also, big milestones. South Africa's SABC Plus has officially reached 2 million registered users, and there's even more waiting for you. Stream great content from Supersport Schools, Sportscast Bricks to TV Africa and Mpuma Kapa TV and 1KZN TV, all on SABC Plus. So if you haven't yet, download SABC SABC Plus today and join the millions. One platform, more to watch and listen to. SABC Plus, download, register and stream now. Continue with us on all our social media platforms, and we will be back again tomorrow. Same time, 12 to 1, #Africa Update. Bye-bye.
Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre...
Hizo zilijulikana kama Lupercalia na zilifanyika kuadhimisha uzazi, upendo na mwanzo wa majira ya kuchipua.
Zilipendwa kila Jumamosi kuanzia saa 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati hadi saa 1 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
It's gone 1 p.m. Central African time. Thank you so much to Lulu Gaboo and team. Join them again tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's now time for The Upside. It's the Wednesday edition. We are traveling today, so stay tuned. But first, let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Deboho. Good afternoon. The top stories at this hour: Zimbabwe defends decision to cancel U.S. health talks, and Sierra Leone accuses Guinea of capturing members of its security forces. I am Chandrukoli Gege with the news at 1 o'clock. Zimbabwe has defended its decision to terminate negotiations on a proposed $350 million health funding agreement with the U.S. This comes after President Emmerson Mnangagwa directed that talks on the Memorandum of Understanding be halted, citing sovereignty and data protection concerns. The U.S. Embassy in Harare has expressed regret over the move, saying the deal would have supported key health programs. Government insists the decision was principled and in the national interest. Bunolo Maribe has more.
The decision follows a leaked internal government letter confirming President Mnangagwa's directive to discontinue negotiations under the America First Global Health Strategy. The U.S. Embassy says the agreement would have provided hundreds of millions